Hi, good day everyone. We're back. News from the 23rd, starring State Senator Andres Ayala. And today we have our friend Ed Lomax, who's going to talk to us about his business and how he was able to find funding from the state of Connecticut to continue and progress his business. So Ed, good day. How are you today?
Very well. Thank you for having me here today.
Well, I'm glad that you can make it. And as we have mentioned before, this show that we're doing is to inform individuals about the work that's happening here at the state capitol and how it affects people's lives. And the fact that your company was able to take advantage of a jobs bill that we put out last session, and how that job bill is actually working to help you out and in what you're doing. So, right. Folks, stuff works. When we pass bills over here, this is the practical application of how a bill actually goes and meets the needs of individuals, whether they're businesses, organizations, or my constituents. So, Ed, first of all, tell me a little bit about your company, who you guys are.
So, my name is Ed Lomax, and I'm an architect, and I have a business called Retail Designs in Bridgeport. So, one of the things that we focus on are sort of like environmental systems, which is concerned with like renewable energy, whether it's solar powered panels and then wind power. We also have an interest in like water conservation, integrating technology into architecture, and then we have a focus on sustainable activities. Our sustainable activities can be any number of things which might help communities address the issues associated with sustainability. So nonetheless, as an architect, my passion is the built environment in neighborhoods and how people live and do what they do. So that led me to think about what I might do on the side, because the economy's been a little bit slow for architects and builders in the last couple of years. So
we're hoping that changes.
Well, we do, and I've seen the signs that it is, so I'm happy about that.
Good.
So while we were kind of like slowed down, I decided that I would try to get into a couple of other areas, and in particular with respect to the sustainable activities, I decided that we would start focusing on developing a biofuel feedstock. And the biofuel feedstock was, or is, both sort of like a small farming activity and a grease recycling company, which is known as Green Fuel. So the Green Fuel container is sort of like a product which we've been distributing within neighborhoods in the Bridgeport area, so that people could take their waste vegetable oil and dispose of it properly.
Okay.
Because when people take their waste vegetable oil and put it in the garbage or put it into their sinks or toilets, that grease ends up in the waste stream and causes problems. Whether you have a situation, if it's poured down the sink, it gets into the main and then clogs up the city sewer lines, which then causes WPCA to have to come out and snake out the pipes. That is due in part to the fact that grease, once it gets into the system and cools, it coagulates and causes clogs. If it gets entangled with the other debris that ends up in that system, and then vice versa. And then also in garbage collection, when you pour the grease into your garbage cans, this grease can become, can get mixed into the garbage and cause the garbage to not be capable of being burned. It won't be burned as efficiently as if it were just dry stuff. And also, when the grease is poured into garbage cans, it just creates the potential for you having problems with like vermin and other kinds of animals and things that can get through whatever it is that you're might be putting it into in these things. So we figured it was a good idea to kind of introduce this to people so that they would be able to dispose of their grease properly.
Well, let me ask a question. You said you introduced this to people. How do you go about introducing this canister to individuals?
Well, we basically have a team of people who basically go into neighborhoods and canvass and talk with these residents about the program and what the sort of like pros and cons of putting sort of like this type of product into the waste stream. And as a consequence, of that interaction, we've been able to persuade people to kind of use these containers, because surprisingly people are and have been taking that grease and putting it into something, and then they for whatever reason they'll either put it into a freezer and freeze it and get rid of it at some point in time, or they do some other interesting thing with it. I have an aunt that swears by pouring her grease on her pear trees, because she swears that it makes the pears better.
Okay.
So there are people there are people who have struggled with what to do with their grease for a very long time.
Gotcha.
So that's how, like I said, when we go on and talk to people, they tell you, and then you relate to it because you've got people in your own family that have talked about the grease that way too.
Excellent. Well, let me put out a scenario. Let's say I myself was interested in getting one of your canisters. How would the process sort of evolve? I mean, is there a way to contact you?
Sure.
Is there email, or is there a website? Is there a phone number? What would I do to get a canister?
So you can certainly go to www.sustainabilityonline.biz, and you can then you'll be in a position to connect with us through the various platforms that we have. You could also call us. We're in Bridgeport, 203-366-5581. And someone, whoever you speak to, will be able to tell you how to go about doing it. We also have, once you go to the website, a way for you to actually sign up online, and we'll get the contact. We'll then be contacted, and then we'll get in contact with you that way as well.
Oh, well, that's excellent. And we'll make sure that we provide that information towards the end of the program, so that individuals will be able to either contact you through those different means that you spoke about. Now, in conversations that we had earlier, you actually said that there was an opportunity for you to go through the Step Up program to be able to find some state funding to assist you in this endeavor. Can you talk about that, please?
Sure. So along the way, as I've been setting this up, we've been looking at the different programs that might be available to help, with the capital associated with doing this. Because, as a small business person, it's tough finding ways to get additional capital to do things. Now, I would never have been able to afford to, because the business is a new business. It's one of these green businesses that are new. It's a new, it's a new thing.
How new?
Well, I think in the last, 25, actually, let's say even 10 years, we've been moving toward renewables as a source of energy. So in the state, we've had legislation that was geared toward getting the state of Connecticut to be on using 20% renewable energy as a source of its energy, and that legislation might have gone back 5-10 years.
But how new is your individual company?
So my business is about a year and a half.
Oh, okay, so you're a new startup.
Exactly.
Okay, excellent.
And it was really truthfully in response to the development of a biofuel plant that we have now in the city of Bridgeport. Because the biofuel plant would certainly benefit by having a locally sourced biofuel feedstock, which yellow grease or used cooking oil represents. So needless to say, about a year and a half ago, we discovered that this was really starting to take hold, and we decided that this would be a nice activity to implement in a community. But without the state funding that would support employees that I could hire, this would never have gotten to a place that it is now, because this is a labor-intensive activity. It's really on a low level is a sales job, because we have to have people go out and talk to people and talk with them about the container and what used cooking oil or waste grease does to their sort of like the waste stream and everything.
So if I can go back a little bit, prior to you applying for and getting the dollars that you got from the Step Up grant from the state of Connecticut, how many employees were part of the business, and as a result of the Step Up program, where are we now as far as employees?
0 employees, because I would be the only person. And as an architect, I was focused on the architecture, and then on top of it, doing something like this is just sort of like was being done sort of like on the side, really on the side, on the weekends. So with the Step Up program, and I am very grateful to Carmen Nieves, who's the Step Up coordinator down in Bridgeport. She's a very nice lady, and she's very, very helpful. I was able to bring into my business 4 new faces, 4 new people to help with this.
4 as a result of the Step Up program?
Absolutely.
Wow, okay.
And they've been very helpful and very, it's been very, it's been the main reason why I've been able to kind of distribute about 350 to 400 of these containers. Now that's nowhere near the 15,000 that I want to get distributed, but I believe that you know, the Step Up program has allowed me to get started, and because of the fact that I am training, I have to do some training of those people. They're learning about this so that, you know, as we go forward and the opportunities present themselves to hire more people, I'll have a staff of people who understand this so that I won't have to be the sort of like the brain trust. I'll have 4 people who are trained who can now run this because I really believe that this will take off.
But that's excellent, Ed. I'm glad to see that you're out there. You've hired 4 individuals and now are at work and helping to move this idea further along. Can you just really briefly tell me what were some of the things that you looked into these folks that you hired? What were some of the qualities that you were looking in them to bring them into this?
Sure. So basically, you know, people have to be able to talk to people. People skills is very important. The other skills that, you know, maybe they have, or maybe it's something that they will gain or pick up while they're with me, is you know, being able to use the computer, being able to use technology. You know, as I was saying to you before we started this sit down, you know, there's a lot of social media that's out there that we use in doing what we do, because a lot of the people that we have actually communicated with or gotten to be customers, we've gotten through online sort of like activities. So we need people that can, you know, use the computer, know how to get around on the internet. And these days, you know, most people have little Facebook accounts and stuff like that. So, you know, that's important. They have to be people who are excited. You know, you've got to have some enthusiasm. And being interested in working. And, you know, you discover after you talk with a lot of people, particularly ones who've signed up for that program, that these are all people who really want to work.
Gotcha.
And they just need an opportunity. So I'm happy that I was able to do that. But like I said, without the Step Up grant, I would never have been able or been in a position to have a job.
Well, Ed, I want to thank you so much for joining us today on the show. And if you want to show you the container, make sure folks see it.
For you too.
Oh, well, thanks so much. We appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
But once again, you know, these are the jobs of the future, green jobs, and I applaud your efforts in making this happen. Sustainability is an issue, is a theme that we want to make sure that we continue. We're always talking about it, and anything that brings jobs to the city of Bridgeport, gets folks employed, we want to be supportive. I'm glad this is a practical application of how we see the work that we do up here at the Capitol by passing that jobs bill and seeing how it affects one of our small startup companies in Bridgeport. So it works. It's a process, but it works, and that's the important thing. So, Ed, I want to thank you once again for joining us.
Appreciate that.
And I wish you well as you go forward with Green Fuel.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Back with State Senator Andres Ayala representing the 23rd District. And on this half of this segment, we have a very good friend of mine who works for the city of Bridgeport, Christopher Rosario. Chris, how are you today?
I'm great, very well. Glad to be here.
Glad. I'm glad to see that you're here. we wanted to talk about a little bit about the work that you do for the city of Bridgeport, the department that you're representing. Can you give us a little bit of, first of all, what is the department name?
The department name is the Anti-Blight, and also I just recently took over illegal dumping. So our main focus is quality of life issues. Your abandoned house, your vacant overgrown lot, basically parts of town that are a little run down. We're trying to get those back up to speed.
Well, excellent. Thank you so much for providing that information. I know that in the work that we do here at the state capitol, although it's not necessarily an issue that we sort of have jurisdiction over, but many constituents give us a call about those properties that are blighted. They talk about those lots that are overgrown, and I know that you and your department has been so helpful in ensuring that you're attentive, ensuring that you work with the constituents to clear out those problems. Can you talk about some of the things that you're seeing out of your department right now? What's happening and how are you addressing these issues of blight?
Well, one of the main issues that's been happening was about a year and a half ago. I know there's been a foreclosure problem, but over time we're seeing that a lot of the banks, we've been getting a lot more cooperation from the banks. So we've been reaching out to the banks, to their REO person, which is their maintenance arm of the bank. So basically, we've been working with them. They've been complying with the city. Whatever fines we do levy, they pay back to the city. In some cases, we have to do an emergency order, which we would have to get an emergency permission from the health department to step in, go onto the property, clean it, secure it, because the public safety is at risk.
So let me ask you a question, Chris, and I'd like to do play out a little bit of a scenario, and if you can explain to me how the process would work out. Let's say, for instance, I look and I'm riding down the street and I see a property that is abandoned. There's overgrown weeds, windows and doors are busted in, and we know that it's a situation where there might be some folks that are squatting in the home, some illegal activity may be happening. I call your office, I say, such and such street, on the address is this. What happens once you get the complaint?
Once we get the complaint, first I would like to plug we have a system called Be Connected,
okay,
which we can go onto our city website, www.bridgeportct.gov. You can call 203-576-1311. And we also have a smartphone app where if you have an iPhone, Android, you can download Be Connected, and you can report any city issue, but in this case blight. Say you were to call me, first of all we get the address, we check our tax records, our assessor's records, we try to locate who's the owner. We send a staff member out there, we verify what the problem is within 24 to 48 hours. Once we see what the issue is, we contact the owner, we send a warning letter. In many cases, if it's a really bad issue, we'd have to get an emergency order to go onto the property. However, once we verify that there is a problem, we notify the owner there's an issue here. It's abandoned, it's open, vacant. They have 5 days to comply. After that 5 days is up, our enforcement officer goes out there and starts fining at $100 a day. $100
a day?
$100 a day, yes.
Wow, that's pretty steep.
Yeah, it's very steep. So what we've been getting a lot of success is contacting the owner. What many property owners do, they hide behind an LLC. So we've been using our Secretary of State's database to locate the LLC, get the principal's information, the attorney's information, home, business address. So we send it to every address. Home, business, the attorney.